Hello, my name is Dennis Halandzovskyi. Thank you for joining me. If you stand with Ukraine and believe in strategic clarity over rushed diplomacy, please subscribe and like this video now. Today we focus on one of the most unexpected diplomatic developments of the Ukraine war. The United States, via its Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, has met with Russian officials in Abu Dhabi at a time when peace negotiations are shifting rapidly. According to multiple reports, Driscoll traveled to the United Arab Emirates after recent talks between the US and Ukraine that revised a previously presented peace framework. This stage represents both opportunity and risk for Kiev. The background: the US had originally proposed a broad-ranging peace plan for Ukraine and Russia, reportedly comprising 28 points. That plan had drawn strong criticism from Ukrainian and European officials for including major concessions from Ukraine's side, territorial compromises, limits on its defense capabilities, even restrictions on its future security alliances. Recent meetings in Geneva between US and Ukrainian officials resulted in a revised version, reportedly reduced to about 19 points and removing some of the most controversial provisions. Then Driscoll's move to Abu Dhabi signals that the United States is attempting to bring Russia into the process. What makes this especially serious is that the meeting is not widely publicized, reflecting the sensitive nature of the diplomacy. For Ukraine, this means a moment of high leverage but also high risk. On the positive side, engagement by the US and a meeting with Russia suggest the possibility of influencing the terms of a settlement before they become fixed. Kyiv can still shape key outcomes. On the other hand, because full details remain unclear, there is a real danger that Ukraine could be pressured into accepting a deal that does not sufficiently protect its sovereignty, territorial integrity, or long-term security. Reports warn that while Russia has shown some interest, its demands remain maximal. Certain Russian officials have emphasized that any agreement should reflect earlier understandings between President Vladimir Putin and his US counterpart. That puts Ukraine in a precarious position. The frontline country is being somewhat sidelined in high-level diplomacy. This meeting in Abu Dhabi is also taking place while the war continues unabated. Just as Driscoll arrived, Ukrainian cities were struck by missile and drone attacks. That underlines the urgency. Negotiations cannot happen in a vacuum while the battlefield shifts. Ukraine must ensure that diplomacy reinforces its war effort, not undermines it. So what should Kyiv focus on now? First, clear red lines. No deal can require Ukraine to surrender territory it hasn't freely agreed to relinquish. No deal can limit its ability to join defensive alliances or degrade its military capability to defend itself. Second, transparency and coordination with allies. Ukraine must ensure Europe and NATO remain engaged so that any deal is not simply US-Russia bilaterally scripted. Third, timing and sequencing. Meet the negotiators from a position of strength rather than desperation. Accepting a trimmed-down plan because of pressure now could hamper Ukraine's ability to rebuild and defend post-war. In the next block, we'll examine possible scenarios from this Abu Dhabi meeting, how Ukraine should respond, and what are the hidden dangers behind these so-called secret talks. Now we delve into what outcomes might emerge from the Abu Dhabi meeting between Driscoll and Russian officials, and how Ukraine must navigate through them to avoid strategic losses. First scenario: the meeting yields genuine progress. Russia signals willingness to engage with the revised US-Ukraine framework, and Ukraine's prior objections are bridged. A roadmap is established for negotiations, security guarantees, reconstruction funding, phased withdrawal of Russian troops, and timing for Ukraine's integration into European security architecture. If that happens, Ukraine could secure a stronger diplomatic and military posture heading into peace talks. Second scenario: the meeting produces cosmetic progress, but key issues remain unresolved or are deferred. Russia may agree to talk, but demands on Ukraine's land, limits on its military, or restrictions on its future alliances remain substantial. Ukraine might be asked to agree to a deal with major concessions up front, while enforcement mechanisms remain weak. This scenario risks signing an agreement that freezes the war on unfavorable terms, leaving Ukraine exposed to future Russian aggression. Third scenario: the meeting falters and divisions among allies deepen. Russia rejects meaningful compromises. The US drives the process unilaterally. Europe becomes sidelined, and Ukraine is pressured into accepting a deal under time constraint. In this outcome, The frontline state receives less leverage, Allied unity weakens, and the war drags on under worse conditions. Russia may exploit delays to escalate militarily. Ukraine must prepare for all three. Here are key strategic actions for Kyiv right now. Maintain military momentum. While diplomacy proceeds, Ukraine must keep pressure on and not allow warfare to pause in name only. Engage and coordinate strongly with European and NATO partners. Diplomatic gains for Ukraine will depend on collective commitment, not just US leadership. Clarify and publicly communicate red lines. UK public and partner support for positions such as no territorial concession, full participation in negotiations, binding security guarantees. Monitor the timeline. The fact that these talks are happening in Abu Dhabi, rapidly and somewhat privately, means Ukraine must insist on defined stages, signatures, timelines, verification mechanisms. Prepare for worst-case concession pressure. Ukraine's leadership should ready themselves to resist unfair trade-offs and to continue war effort if no acceptable deal arrives. Finally, the hidden danger. The more secret the diplomacy, the greater the risk that Ukraine becomes a bargaining chip rather than an equal partner. The Abu Dhabi meeting shows the world that the US is driving things, but for Ukraine, this could mean less control. If Kyiv does not assert itself now, the peace process may lock in outcomes that undermine its future capacity to defend, rebuild, and align with the West. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like this video if you found this update meaningful. And thank you to all of Ukraine's partners for your help and support. Your solidarity is Ukraine's strength.